This is Abnormal Entertainment.
2, 3, 4. Walked into the tunnel just to find the light. Hunted for old demons, looking for a fight. Looked up at the stars, seemed to go forever. There must be a way, it all fits together. Fell into the quicksand, held on to the vines. Never could quite color, stay within the lines. Feels like I have wings, I can fly wherever. This is just a way, it all fits together. Finally saw the world through rose-colored glasses. Gonna share my journey to small and large masses. Give up on my life, no sir, me never. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Garza, and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. Start as usual, thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Morris, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Inviting everybody to join us at abnormalentertainment.com, where you can find all the shows on the network. Check us out. Today I have a special guest. I'm not going to try to pronounce your first name because I know it's like uber long. So
the last name is uber long.
So we'll go with Pej, right?
That's right. Pej is the nickname.
But what is your full name?
Full name is Pejman Alagamandan.
There we go. Okay.
It's Persian. It's
yes.
Farsi. It's Iranian.
Obviously, it's not Spanish. So
no, it's not Pejman Gonzalez.
Because they have a Jose in there somewhere.
Yes.
They did.
Yep.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming back to my apartment.
Thank you for having me.
We could have done this way back when I met you.
It's been years.
But for some reason, it was just an energy reading, or I did a card reading for you then.
You did a card reading. That was good.
You were
Everything came true.
You were about to start your own business and stuff. Right?
Yes.
So everything did come through?
Well, the businesses started. Some businesses started. Some finished. And then I've started more other businesses since.
Good.
Yes.
We were discussing, and awkward enough, we were discussing how we met, as I usually do with my guests. And not to put a downer into the conversation, but you just informed me that the person that I met you through passed away.
Yes, he did.
Wow. And I'm a little shocked. He was young.
He was young. He struggled for a long, long time with addiction and alcoholism.
But we're not going to mention his name out of privacy.
Yeah, we don't need to say his name.
But yeah, let me get out of that mentality.
Yes.
Our prayers with him and
his family.
He was a good guy.
Very good guy.
So anyway, welcome to the show. We're going to get out of that space right now.
Yes.
So that's how we met. You came over. I was supposed to talk to you about some other work and recovery stuff, and then we lost track of each other for a long time.
I think we're just both very busy men.
We are. We're very important in our own worlds.
Exactly. We stay busy so we stay out of trouble, but we keep getting in trouble.
And then I recently, I was invited by you to an anniversary party. And
that's right.
We can get into that if that's okay with you.
Sure, I'll talk about that in a little bit.
Anyway, well, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Awesome.
You have a great story, so I'm just going to get into it. Pesh, tell us how you put it together.
Okay. Well, I'm very grateful to be here because I just love your spirit. I love you as a human being. I think we both had some gnarly journeys, both in and out of recovery. I am a man of recovery now. I can say this much. I'm, as I mentioned, I'm Iranian, but I was born in Germany. Then I was raised in Salt Lake City, Utah for the first part of my life, like around the time I was 5 years old until 15. And so pretty much my first language was German, but moving to Utah, I went to kindergarten from the very first day and So I learned English, and I was learning Farsi in the house, which is the Iranian language. So German was just kind of put on the back burner. And it was a language that it was my first spoken language, but it became my least spoken language.
Right.
So I still know a little bit of German, but not much, right? I'll say I know English to a certain extent. I think I might be able to speak today. And then Farsi I'm fluent in, and you know, growing up in Salt Lake City, Utah during that time, this was right around the time there was a revolution in Iran, where, you know, there was wars and things like that going on, and there was hostages taken, and so for me, it was really rough growing up in Salt Lake City, Utah, because the majority of people are Mormon, American. We were Iranians, families Muslim, you know, so it was hard. You know, I tried to fit in all the time, and it was really hard. I felt really uncomfortable in my own skin. I never thought I looked like them, talked like them, sounded like them, so I did my best to fit in. And I felt like people looked down on me, and sometimes that's because, I mean, it's not like everybody was mean to me, but there was certain people that would call me names, you know, they would say derogatory racial slurs, and so as they would put me in a category, I started putting them in a category, and I was just kind of, you know, I had my dukes up, ready to fight.
Right.
And because I would truly get beat up a lot, you know, I'd get bullied by people for being darker, for being from a different nationality. Whatever was going on diplomatically over there, I was suffering the repercussions from a lot of people. So I was just, you know, I couldn't wait to get high or drunk or to get out of myself, because I was never comfortable with being right here, right now. You know, I didn't know how to live in the moment. You know, I was very in a lot of fear. So what had happened was, I started experimenting with gasoline, and I would mow lawns at the age of 12, and when I would huff gas, I realized that if I did enough of it, it would actually make me high, you know. And I guess I learned how to do that in a health class where they said don't sniff glue, don't sniff white out and things like that. So I realized like those, they have some chemicals in those that if you sniff them, you know, they're telling you not to. And curious child that I was, that wasn't already comfortable in his own skin, is going to do things that are not good for me. So I started sniffing some gasoline, and then went to a Persian wedding, got drunk. People were drinking champagne, leaving half-drank glasses behind. So I went and finished them, and I got really, really drunk one night at this wedding. First night I was like, you know, drinking heavily, and I totally loosened up. I was like, I you know, that thing happens that, you know, to us alcoholics or addicts, that I became bodily and mentally different than my fellows. And I was on the dance floor, and I was pop locking, and I was dancing, and I was getting down, and I just remember, like, I didn't like the taste of it. I didn't like, you know, the way it went down. I didn't like the way it coated my stomach, but I liked the way it made me feel.
Yeah.
You know, and when I liked the way it made me feel, I couldn't get enough of it. So I just kept drinking and drinking. And by the end of the night, you know, I thought I was alive for the party. In my mind, I really was. And they're closing down at the end of the night, and I'm like, I've just begun. And my parents stuck me in the car, drove me home, and as we're driving home, I'm slurring my words, and my dad looks back and says, Pedro's on a good one tonight. And they put me in my bed when I got home, and I blacked out in my bed, and I guess I wet the bed, and I puked the bed, and I woke up the next morning, and I thought, I have arrived.
How old were you?
I was 12.
Wow.
I was 12, and I felt like I need to chase that feeling more and more, because it got me out of right here, right now. It made me feel looser. It made me feel more carefree, more happy-go-lucky, and I just wanted that. I wanted that a lot. And I remember, you know, by the time I was about 14 and a half, 15 years old, Dad got this job opportunity out here in California. We'd come to California sometimes on vacation. We had cousins that lived in the valley, so Canoga Park, Woodland Hills, we'd go visit them. So, like, now he has this opportunity to move out there, and for me, it was like, this is like the chance of a lifetime, like to get out of Utah. The only good thing that I liked about Utah was the skiing. Other than that, I don't, you know, now that I look at it, I have good childhood, you know, fond memories of like growing up there, and I'm happy I grew up there because I got to be who I am today. I can't imagine if I had grown up in other parts of the country, like what my mentality would have been. But I think that I definitely would have still been an addict and an alcoholic, because I just have that gene, right? So when we moved to California, I thought we were moving to LA, and we ended up landing in a big old city of Costa Mesa. And I remember I came first. My dad and I came out here first, and my mom and sister came after. But immediately, it was during the summertime, and I got a job at a McDonald's on Harbor Boulevard, and I was signed up for summer school at Estancia High School. And I remember I was when I was on a work permit, I worked at McDonald's, and there was this guy named Carlos that was with me there. Like my very first day, we were flipping burgers, and he looked at me, and he's like, "Hey, see, you're new in town, Holmes?" And I'm like, "I'm new in town." He goes, "You smoke weed?" And I said, "Absolutely, I smoke weed." He goes, "You want to smoke some weed after work?" And I'm like, "Sure, let's do it." You know, more substances, whatever. What do you got? Let's do it.
Right.
So he took me to this place at the end of Harbor Boulevard called the Motor Inn. And the Motor Inn was like this dingy, seedy motel. And I still remember, like it was nighttime, and I was young, and I was just wanting to get high. And he said, "Sit on the end of these stairs. I'm going to go up in this room real quick. I'll be right back." And I watched him go up into the room, and door shut, and I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting. Thinking, where's this guy? So I got impatient. I went up and knocked on the door. Door swung open. There's this lady. She answered the door. Her body looked like she was 35 years old. Body. Face looked like she was 65. Toothless, snaggletooth, holding a crying baby. And I said to her, "Excuse me, miss, where's Carlos?" And she said, "He's back in the kitchen." And I looked, it was like this little hotel room, like a little motel room. Sorry, I don't want to give it that much credit. It was a little motel room, like with a bed, and like there was this kid playing in there, and the baby's crying, and her that she's holding, and there's like some clothes drawn between the front room and the kitchen. And she said, "Go back there, go talk to Carlos." I went back there, and there's like this a mound of white, powdery, glistening stuff, and I didn't know what that was, right? So it was glistening, and I had watched Miami Vice back then, so like I had a good idea of what it could be, but I'm young, I don't know what this stuff is. And I see him over in the corner doing some kind of shenanigans. I'm like, "Carlos, did you forget about me?" He goes, "Oh," I said, "I forgot about you. Let me break you off real quick." And he gave me the weed, and then I smoked the weed. And I remember just like walking down Victoria Boulevard that night, thinking like, now it's like really late. It's like 12:30, almost 1 a.m. I'm 15 years old. How am I going to get into the house and without my parents waking up? And I remember when I got to my house, I was on the side of the house, and like a ninja in the night, I climbed up this tree and went in up onto the roof, and like slowly kind of just like put one leg into the window, went into my bedroom. I'm thinking like I'm in, right? And all of a sudden, as I got in there, I turned on the light switch, and my mom is sitting in my bed, wide awake with this look on her face of, "Where have you been, son? What are you doing? You're 15 years old. I can't have you walking the streets of Costa Mesa. Why are your eyes so red? Wait till your dad deals with you in the morning." And I remember that my dad was a certain way. Like he wasn't a happy man. He was hot and cold. Like some days he was really happy, and some days he was like very angry, right? And he had certain ways of expressing himself, abusive to say the least. He was a violent man. He was brought up in a violent household as it was. So what he knew to do was, he had very large eyes, and if he got angry, you knew it. And he would often use his hands or objects to get his point across, right? So she would instill this fear in me. And I remember the next day she said, "We're going to, it's not working out here with the school. We want to take you and your sister and move to another side of town." So we moved to another side of town to a better school for a better education. So now, like at this time, I'm barely 16 years old. I'm starting to hang out with certain friends, doing the whole high school party thing, going and drinking off the keg. And, I didn't really like beer. So I started to get like into the heavier alcohol, like whiskey and things like that. And because it was a short shot, like there's no wasting time. You just put it in you and you're off to the races, yes. Right? And I remember like at the time people were doing drugs, and I started I had this one friend, his name was Omid, Persian guy. Dad worked in the hotel industry, and he did a lot of cocaine. And like we found a jar of cocaine under this guy's dad's bed, and we ended up doing lines and starting to hang out in hotels because he had connections to like the Hiltons and things. We were these two young Persian boys that were just trying to go and, we were carefree, right? Just having fun. And I remember that doing lines of the cocaine that we were taking out of his dad's jar, somebody, there was no Google to learn how to do this stuff. Somebody had to teach us. So I remember that we learned how to start to freebase cocaine.
Wow.
And, two 16-year-olds, like, it's not normal, like, for you to be, smoking rock. Like, it's not normal. Right. But, so already, I was already becoming an actively addicted human being. It was just what I wanted to get high.
So are your parents aware of what's going on? Or you were hiding it?
Not that much yet.
Okay.
Right? There was hints. Obviously, Mom was on to me when she caught me the first couple of times. And yes, they were aware of some stuff they didn't know. Like, and I wasn't, it was becoming more than just a phase. Because my drug use was expanding. I was doing more and more. So I remember, that when they moved us to the other side of town, by the time I was 17, like a year late, I got a driver's license, and my dad gave me his 71 Volkswagen Yellow Beetle. And I remember it was one morning, and I had drank the night before, so I was a little bit hungover, but I remember just getting into the car, piling all my friends in the car. I went and picked up all my friends and my sister, my girlfriend, and we have 6 people in a Volkswagen Bug, the old school Bugs, like the little ones, right? I'm driving up the street. It had rained the night before. The streets were wet. And as I get to this intersection, and I'm just about to roll up, this kid, 14-year-old kid, comes right in front of my car, and the car hits him, and he goes right over the windshield, into the windshield's body. And I remember the car kept rolling and crashed into this van. This kid's body was flung right over the top of the van, head first into the ground. Jeez. And everything went in slow motion, Daniel. I mean, I'm just like, what just happened? Like, did I just hit a human body?
Mm.
And I remember getting out of the car, and I went around the side of the van, and I saw this kid laying face down with blood just gushing out of the top of his head.
Oh my God.
And it was next to an elementary school, and these kids were playing out in the schoolyard when we were first rolling up. But at this point now, they're just shrieking and screaming and hollering. And this teacher comes running out of the school over to me and says, "You sit on that curb, you're in big trouble." And I remember sitting on the curb and putting my head in my face in my hands, and blood was trickling from the top of because the impact of the windshield, there was broken pieces of glass and blood going into my mouth, and I could taste blood and glass. And I just thought, this is the worst day of my life.
Yeah.
And the ambulances came, the police came, and they took me to the police station, and they sat me down, and they interrogated me, they checked me, they wanted to see if I was under the influence, and I wasn't. They asked me what had happened and all this and that, and then they released me. I remember just going in my house and just crying my eyes out. Like going in my bedroom, burying my face in my pillow, just crying my eyes out. Wow. And then I passed out and woke up the next morning just hoping it was all a nightmare, and I stepped out on the front doorstep and see Orange County Register. I'm on the front page of the newspaper.
Wow.
And somebody caught a picture of it, and it said student hit another student. And the kid that I hit didn't die right away. The mom put him on life support and kept him on for 3-4 days. But due to the fact that he had so much extensive brain damage, she took him off 4 days later, and because he would have been a complete vegetable. He wouldn't have been, he was out of it, and so for the next 3-4 months, I was this loose, angry, defiant, combative young man. Just this teenager that was like, I was just a bad guy. I would get into fights with people. People would come up to me on the street and say, "You killed that kid?" And I'd say, "That was a car accident. I didn't kill anybody. It was an accident. That wasn't intentional." And, they would have a problem with me. I would create a bigger problem for them. And I started stealing and doing all kinds of stuff. I was just mad. I was mad at the world. 17 years old, I'm standing in front of a juvenile judge, and he says, "Mr. Oliver Marmon, we don't see you fit to be on the streets of Orange County. You're a complete menace to society. In the last 3 or 4 months, you've accumulated all of these crimes. And on top of that, you have a vehicular manslaughter without gross negligence charge. Therefore, we see it fit for you to go to juvenile hall." And I remember walking into juvie, and I was a knucklehead. I was a young man that was like, "Yeah, bring it. Let's try it. Let's see what it's like on the inside," right? And the second I walked in, I had this friend of mine that was kind of my running and gunning partner that had gotten busted a week before, and he greeted me right at the beginning of juvie at boys receiving, gave me my towel, my underwear, and my socks all rolled up. And as I'm walking down the corridor, I look and see the cholos are all looking at me through the plexiglass metal doors. They're like, "Where are you from, fool?" And I'm thinking, damn, dude, I don't want to be here at all. Like, what was I thinking, right? And I went to my cell that night, and I was just in a 2-man cell by myself. And that night, I just had this meltdown. I started freaking out, crying, screaming. And they came and they took me and put me in this other unit called Unit L. And Unit L, amongst the inmates, was the loony unit. So now I'm like I'm in this padded room with caged windows. I guess they thought I was a suicide risk, right?
Right.
And I was falling apart. I was losing my stuff. And I remember just thinking that night, there's no such thing as God. There's just no such thing as God. You know, why would God do this to me? Why would God do that to that poor kid? He was just riding his bike to school that morning. He didn't know he was going to die that day. Gone, blackout, dead, just like that. And me, I was this regular kid. What has happened to my life? I'm in the psych ward? I didn't see the light of day for 60 days in there.
Wow.
I didn't even get to go outside. Not once. You know?
For 60 days.
For 60 days.
That would drive anybody.
It was driving me insane. I saw all kinds of things in there. I saw people with boogers and feces and all kinds of stuff like on the walls, and they would sometimes make us clean out their cell, and just like, you know, people that had murdered. Most of the people that were in there were either psychotic or they had committed a crime that was related to death as an adolescent.
Right.
So here I am, you know, because of what I was getting charged with. So it was bad. It was really bad. And there were people that would come through carrying a message of hope. There was actually a priest that was in there that would, he was from Alcoholics Anonymous. He was a priest that was there for the young men, and he was trying to show us a different way of life, but I wasn't hearing it. You know, I was more taking his inventory and wondering why he has a pack of cigarettes if he's a priest.
So this wasn't your crossroad yet?
It wasn't, not yet.
Okay.
It was the first time I was introduced to someone carrying a message of hope, right? But it wasn't of interest to me. And I remember getting out of there on good behavior. They put the anklet on me. My parents were going through a divorce, which I was not happy about. That was really screwing with me.
To add to everything.
My parents, as dysfunctional as our family was, I didn't want to be the child of divorced parents. And at that time, too, I had like this identity crisis and suffering from body dysmorphia, so I was doing a lot of steroids. I was barely 18 years old. And my mom, I would go and try and stay at her house, and I'd get into arguments with her and have mood swings, and I'd punch holes in the drywall. And I remember seeing the fear in my mom's face that I was causing to her, right? And I would leave her house and go to my dad's house. And back and forth like this yo-yo latchkey child. And one day my dad, he got in my face, he said something it didn't sit well with me, and I had a full-on mood swing, you know, like a roid swing from the steroids. I threw the man against the wall and I hit him. And I scared him, and he told me the next day, he sat me down and said, listen, son, this relationship isn't working out. I'm going to go back to the old country. This is the apartment. Here's some money. You can go to Orange Coast College, and you can figure it out. Mom moved up to LA. So here I am, this kid, barely 18 years old, still wet behind the ears. No guidance from any male figure. No concept of reality, life.
Right.
I just, like, everything before 18, I was just this guy that thought he knew it all. You know, like teenagers, they think they know it all, right? At this point, I remember the fear in, like, sinking in, like, what is going to happen to me right now in this world? How am I going to survive? So, you know, you give a dope fiend alcoholic a bunch of money like that and expect him to go to school. I went one day, I sat in class, and I was like, I'm done. Like, there's no way. I'm just going to go ahead and get my refund for the books and everything. I'm going to open shop. So I started selling drugs because that was the best thing I knew how to do.
So for everybody listening, because, wow, you're only 18.
18.
We've already dealt with alcohol, drugs, death, parents' divorce, jail time, considered insane, basically.
Yeah.
And you're only 18 years old.
Right.
For somebody in their 40s, that's a lot to handle.
Mm-hmm.
But your way of rebelling against all that was just to set up a shop.
Shut up shop. Because I remember somebody told me, because I was smoking a lot of weed and doing a lot of drugs, and somebody, a little bird told me, another dealer told me that, first of all, you don't get high off your own supply.
Exactly.
And secondly, if you sell it, you'll have more of it. You know, so you will make money out of it. So if you are getting high, you know, just limit your stuff. So anyway, so like, I tried working at May Company back then. It was before it was Robinson's May and all that. And there was a place called May Company in South Coast Plaza. I tried working there. I was working an early morning shift, and I became a security guard in an apartment complex. But, you know, I was getting high. So it's like, and they were paying me, back then minimum wage was like, what, $3.75 or something like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it was hard to survive. I had a 2-bedroom apartment. It was $750. I could barely make it. I had to have a guy move in, and still it was hard. So the best thing for me, my best thinking just said sell drugs. And I was artistic. So I remember being artistic, and I started like doing some drawings. and I put some stuff together. And then I knew a guy that was a tattoo artist, and he kind of cleaned up my drawings. And then I knew another guy that at the time, like, computers were just starting to take off where you could, like, actually do designs and stuff. There's an Asian guy. He, like, put together some stuff for me. And then I had some hookups with these Mexicans that lived out in Arizona. They had T-shirts that came in different colors. Then I started a clothing line.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like full-on clothing.
In the midst of all that.
In the midst of all that. Because I believe that my talents were, because I had that artistic talent, my talents were there, but I was so in the fog with all of the drugs and everything. But I knew I was driven. I was young. I was enthusiastic. I knew, like, I wanted to be ambitious. I knew that it was expected of a Persian man whose parents were doctors and scientists and things like that to go to school. I didn't do that, so I might as well do something. So what does a Persian man do? He becomes a merchant. And for me, being a drug dealer, I have the merchandise, and the money that I'm making from that merchandise, I'm going to go and invest it into something else. So I started this clothing line, and it actually did very well. It was men's and women's clothing. It was surfer, skater, snowboard styles, right?
Got it.
So we even made boards. We made all 3 boards: surf, skate, snow. And we had a men's line, a women's line, and we had a catalog, and we were going to trade shows. And wow. I mean, I was going to trade shows where, like, Tommy Chong had a booth right next to me. We would just rap, and my stuff was all marijuana style based or drug. It was everything that we made for that clothing line. All the designs were glorified drug related topics.
Right. So what year is this?
This is like 1994.
Okay. So folks can get an idea.
Yes.
Yeah, the 90s are coming out of the glorious 80s of drug.
Yep.
Like cocaine was big in the 80s.
Big.
You come into the 90s and it's still kind of.
Well, at this time now, then I started playing with the devil's dandruff, doing meth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I've been doing all kinds of drugs. The raves were really big. We were throwing raves in the name of my company. We were selling our clothing and drugs in those raves. We were going and promote. The rave scene was huge. The club scene was huge, and I was engulfed in it. And I had all the homies that were on this side, like, as my backup, my partners. I had some of them that invested into the company, and I had all the beautiful women. We'd go to strip clubs, Mr. J's, Captain Cream's, all these different places. And so we had all kinds of drugs.
You're living that.
We were living the life. Like,
why change?
Movies like Scarface looked very appealing, and we were doing it with a West Coast flavor. Right? So we were going to the Pimp and Hoe festivals in Vegas. We really thought we had it going on. The egos were big. Like, we would dress flamboyant. We would take pictures together. We were young. We were in our 20s. Tupac was someone to look up to, right? Meanwhile, he died right away, and we're all still, like, in La La Land. And I remember, and I met him once, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a great guy, because 9 days older than me. What a shame. We lost some good ones too early on. But again, I wasn't really messing with opiates. I had experimented with opiates, but I was more of a stimulant guy. I liked going. I was like the Energizer Bunny. I had to do meth or coke or both or crack or whatever could get me going. And so this is just like the lifestyle I'd taken on for a while. And I remember over a period of time, there was these times when I always had the sense of impending doom. Like, deep within the pit of my stomach, I felt like something's going wrong or gonna go wrong soon, right? Like, it's not supposed to be like this. Like, you're having fun, but you're really not having fun, right? Like, deep down inside, that this ain't what your mama raised you to be.
Right.
Like, your mom raised you to be somebody different, and you're just this facade, right? Like, so what happened was,
it's like somewhere along the line you fell through the looking glass, and you're on the other side of it.
I think I always knew better. I just was so caught up in having so much fun with it. And when you're living that lifestyle and you got girls answering to you and guys answering to you and people coming to you because you're the dealer and you have tons of drugs, your ego just gets, the fuel of your ego is getting increased.
Yes.
There's no way I'm going to be like, I'm done with this lifestyle. No, I've only just begun. But the problem is that when you have no money management and no business sense and you're trying to run a business totally high in the clouds, all of a sudden things start to crash. So the wreckage was starting to accumulate without me even knowing it.
Right.
The evictions, having a loan shark confiscate a car because I took all of his money and went to Vegas and blew it all. like $25,000. I was trying to, I had that mentality, I'll just gamble and gamble and gamble and make it back. No, I wasn't doing that. I lost it all, and then I had like numbers on my heads. I started getting mixed up with these Mexican mafia dudes, and they started giving me a bunch of methamphetamines on the cuff, and they were threatening my family, and if I ever got busted, they would come after me. So then I'm like this fugitive, and I'm, running from the cops, running from the bad guys, running, like all my friends had moved away from me, and I wasn't really getting like, dude, your life is just spiraling in the toilet.
Because when you're in it, you don't realize that things are crumbling.
Exactly.
It's exciting. You're beating the odds.
That's right.
I'm going to be different.
Absolutely. I thought I have this figured out. I always thought I'll get, I'm not so, I look in the mirror, I'm not so bad. I mean, I sometimes look and think, you're a drug addict. You're a drug addict. It's like, you love drugs. And then I'd be like, you're not so bad. Like, you could quit. And I remember people started kind of like moving away from me, backing away. The good friends wanted nothing to do with me. And that would anger me. And I think like, well, F you then. If you don't want to be with me, I don't want to be with you. And the partners in my company now that were like a family member and a couple of friends, they backed away too. Because we'd go to like trade shows and I'd be sleeping in the room, wouldn't even make it down to the show, right? Because I was trying to catch up on sleep from all the partying from the night before. And when they backed away, the ego would just say to them, you know what? F you. I'm the father of this company. I started this thing. All the ideas were for me. If it wasn't for me, it wouldn't have even existed for you to be able to invest in it. Meanwhile, they're saying, dude, you're a complete tweaker. Like, there's no talking to you. So we're just not going to talk to you at all. And so, I pushed people away, and I was really good being in my own lonely world. Right. And, I had countless failed attempts at trying to quit. I knew that my mom had moved back down to Orange County from LA, and she had got a place in Costa Mesa, and I was trying to stay at her house and get sober. But my version of sober means stopping heroin and stopping meth and stopping designer drugs, but just smoking weed and drinking. Right. That's what sober means to me. So countless failed attempts. It just didn't happen. I could not quit. I couldn't quit for the life of me. And I remember, after not being able to quit, I still was mingling with the wrong people, and I got raided by the Orange County methamphetamine task force at my mom's house.
Wow.
I had become a DJ in the mix. I don't know how that happened, but I was in the back of this long garage with my then girlfriend, Kathy, who my mom completely despised and hated. And I'm spinning records, and I turned the music off for a second. I went, Kathy, did you hear that? She goes, hear what? And I go, I hear voices. She goes, Pej, you always hear voices. I said, no, I'm telling you right now, like, those are men's voices. They're outside of the garage. She goes, just open the garage. I'm like, no. She goes, it's probably your neighbor, Adam. I said, that's not a good idea because I got a lot of drugs here right now. Just open it. I push the button like an idiot. As it slowly goes up, there's the po-po, all of the cops wearing their police outfits, from different departments. They'd come together as a task force. Right. And they got their guns.
You're popular when it's different task forces.
Oh, yeah. And they got their guns drawn, and it was like a scene out of a movie. They're like, hey, Pej. I'm like, I thought you guys had never come. I saw your helicopters hovering forever. I was wondering when you were actually going to come down, and here you are. So they took me upstairs with Kathy. They handcuffed me. They hogtied her. And I just remember it was like almost 6 p.m. So I knew my mom was going to be getting off work soon. And if she comes home and she sees this scene, I'm in trouble. She hates Kathy, right, at the time. So the cops are like just checking the whole apartment. Two of them are holding us and asking us questions in the living room. And lo and behold, in that moment I said, listen, guys, my mom's going to be home soon. And I'm more afraid of her than I'm of you. I would really like it if you guys would just hurry up and wrap it up and take me in. They said, we'll get to you in a sec, kid. And so again, I got locked up. I was in jail. I got this high-powered attorney. My mom did. She got me Christopher Darden from the OJ trial.
Wow.
So he helped me a lot. I ended up avoiding major prison time, and I got put on probation. I tried going to a sober living of a Persian guy that I didn't like. I went to another sober living. That sober living happened to be across the street from my drug dealer's house because I was 30 years old and I wasn't done. I still had a lot of mileage.
It still wasn't the crossroads.
Still wasn't. No. So what ended up happening after that was that I'd go to 12-step meetings. Wasn't of interest to me. I worked my way out of there. I worked my way after a little while back to my mother's house. and went from formal probation to informal probation. So then I wasn't having to submit any more drug tests. I was dabbling on the weekends. I was just doing a little write-in for my PO, and the weekends became the weekdays. My disease was progressing. Weekdays became daily. Daily became hourly. Hourly became any single moment of the day that I would find a place to get high.
And how old were you then?
32.
Okay.
Mom even tried to get me into the Art Institute because I'm an artist. So I went to the Art Institute of Orange County, right? I knew before I went to school there that I'm not ready for this. Because this is major. Like, this is an art institute. Like, this is like what I always dreamed of, but I'm not in my right mind to do this. So I attempted. I tried. I went to school. I loved it. I learned a lot of great things. I was high the whole time. I started passing out in class. I started overkilling my projects. I started making it late to class. And what ended up happening was I was put on academic probation 2 different times. Anytime you see a kid that gets put on academic probation in their school, there might be a problem there, right? Sat in front of a counselor, told them everything that was wrong except that I have a drug problem.
Right.
Okay? And then after that, my mom ended up seeing that I was about to get kicked out of the school. She wrote a letter to the dean of students and asked if they would keep me there. And they gave me one last chance, and I blew that too. So, at this point now, I'm staying at my mom's house, kicked out of art school, working in some art store, working valet parking too, as a manager, crashing cars all over the place. I mean, I'm on the streets, at the valet lot. I mean, I crashed so many cars. I crashed into a cop that lived on our streets, personal car, totaled his car, totaled it, right? And people were rolling up to me on the street, rolling the window down, saying, "You're on drugs, get off the road." Jails, institutions, near-death experiences, and I still wasn't one. I wasn't ready to get ready. And one day I was getting high at a friend's house, a so-called friend. I don't even want to call it a friend. And I was at this dude's house, and my mom called and said, "Meet me at South Coast Plaza. It's time that we talk." That's 35 years old. We met at a corner bakery, sat down. "Have you eaten?" "No, I haven't." Not for like a week. She got me a sandwich. I was about to put a thing in my mouth, and she goes, "So tell me about this methamphetamine addiction that you have, Tej." And I told her, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Meanwhile, she had just grilled me a week before, and I told her, she said, "Are you on drugs?" And I'm like, "No." "Why does your car have all these new dents all over it?" I don't know. But the gig was up. In that moment, she said a few things where I realized, like, I'm going to try to lie. And she saw right through my lies. And she said, "You're dead to me.
Wow.
I can't help you anymore. I need you to leave. I need you to go home, tell your stepdad that you've been doing drugs in the house, pack your stuff, get out." So I went home. I don't like my stepdad. Why should I go talk to him, right? I did it anyway. I just went and told him, "Look, I've been getting high here. I got to go. I'm going to go get some help." My version of getting help is going homeless in my car. I'm too proud. Proud to ask for actual help, right? Went and lived in my car, and I really thought I had it going on for a while, like I was a homeless man that still had a car. I'm a homeless Persian man that still has a car. Living out of my car, the closet is in the trunk, staying at people's houses. I'm only welcome when I have drugs or alcohol. Taking showers in their houses, in gyms, or community pools. I had it all figured out. I'm a clever tweaker, right? And
I gave it because been there.
I know you have. 6 months later, I did what every so-called gangster does when they run out of options. I called my mommy. I was staying on a person's couch. I slept for 9 days. She told me she couldn't help me. She told me there's a guy named Max. Call him. And I remember when I called him, he said, "Go to this house in Irvine. It's a recovery home." When I went to that house, I knocked on the door, and there was a guy that I met from 5 years before at a Persian sober living whose house I didn't stay at that answered the door. And they say there are no coincidences. It's God's way of staying anonymous. And I recognized him. He didn't recognize me. And I was kind of appalled that he didn't recognize me. I said, "I came to your house for 30 minutes in Huntington Beach 5 years ago." He said, "Okay, so?" I go, "You don't remember me?" He goes, "No, I don't remember you." He goes, "You know who I remember? The ones who stay." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "Come on in." Did the intake process. this guy's talking about a 6-month to a 1-year program. I'm thinking, like, that's a little bit excessive. I'd rather do the Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan 20
I'm not that kind of addict.
28 days in and out program.
We're never that kind of addicts.
He saw right through my stuff, and he ended up having me. I stayed 6 months, and the things that happened there that was my turning point. What's the name of this podcast?
Put it together.
How did I put it together? I went in with reservations. I had a little secret that I told my rehab buddy, and he told me his little secret, and we kind of let our little secrets fly around in our unhealthy alliance. And we got called out in a group, and I lied through my teeth. I wasn't going to come clean in front of my peers because I would have been embarrassed, right? And so I just kept lying. And at the end of it, I went to the counselor's office, sat down with him, and I told him I was lying in that whole group. And he goes, "We all knew." I'm like, "How, you knew?"
Right.
Because, Pez, you're only fooling yourself. Like, come on, man. It's plain as day. You still want to get high. Why don't you tell me about yourself? So I told my life to him. He said, "I have an idea for you." 3 weeks later, we had a family group in this room with all the family members of the people in the house. My mom showed up. She wasn't coming before. She wasn't even taking my calls for like 2 months. It really was killing me. And she came. She was sitting there. My sponsor was there. All my homies were there. And rehab homies. They put this kid on the ground, and they put a bed sheet over his body. And he had me walk around, and he wanted me to describe the day of my car accident and what happened. And so I went all through the motions and everything. Described the way it had rained the night before and how the ground was that, all these different things. Painted a picture for him. I was telling the story, and the tears were pouring out of me. And I looked over at my mom, and I knew she felt my pain because she had lived it with me. And I just remember, I tell my story everywhere. I don't get emotional, but I feel comfortable here. I realized in that moment that I had been using and drinking alcohol and drugs for all those years to mask my emotions, my fears, my pain, my anguish, my guilt, my remorse, everything. Because I didn't want to feel. I was just numbing it out all the time. And as the counselor was walking me through it, he said, "Come over here, get on your knees and put your hand on top of this. See this kid right here? This represents the corpse of the kid that you hit that day. What was his name?" And I said, "His name was David." He said, "Tell David how you feel about him losing his life." And I said, "I'm so sorry you lost your life. I never intended for you to lose your life." He said, "But tell him what happened to your life." And I said, "My life? My life? I don't have a life. I don't know what a life is. I never had a life. I don't know what having life is like." I said, "Okay, in that case, what do you want to do? You want to make a commitment, Pej?" I said, "Yeah, I'll make a commitment." He goes, "What do you want to commit to?" I said, "I want to help every single addict and alcoholic of every age, race, creed, and color one day at a time for the rest of my life." He said, "You making that commitment, Pej?" I said, "You're right, I am." And I thought in that moment, if I'm really going to make this commitment in front of my mom, especially, and everybody else, I better be true to my word and keep my commitment to helping. Woke up the next morning, Daniel, I felt like 1,000 pounds was lifted off of my back. And it was in that moment was my absolute turning point. 100%. I said, I'm doing this thing 100. There's no going back. I'm going to do recovery like I did drugs. I went to any lengths to get high. I went to any lengths to get drunk. I'm going to go to any lengths to stay sober and do what's required of me and take guidance from people. So I started working. I got the Get Well job. I worked at Trader Joe's 6.5 years. That was great. But in that time I went to school, finished top of my class.
Nice.
I remember being at Saddleback, and I opened my laptop. Lo and behold, if you stay sober, you pay attention in class.
Who knew?
You finish your assignments on time. You actually finish your assignment. You do good on tests, right? And I remember I opened up my laptop and it said Pejman Alagamonde 4.0. Never saw those numbers attached to my name. I used to be 1.8 in high school, right? I failed PE because I didn't want to wear the shorts, right? And it said Dean's List. I'm like, who's Dean? Right? So it was required of me from CMAC to start working in the field. So CMAC was the counselor. I worked in an adolescent facility up in Orange Park Acres with a lot of little mini Pejas. They reminded me a lot of myself. There was a lot of power struggles there. That is where I learned that you can actually smoke pills like oxys, right? 14-year-olds coming in smoking their grandma's pills. And then I worked in adult treatment with a bunch of adults that act like teenagers.
Yeah.
And that was fun. I remember I moved up to LA for a while. Right before, it was right then that I met you, and then I moved to LA.
Yeah.
So when I moved to LA, I opened up some bougie, high-end, sober livings that were kind of like geared towards the Persian community of Los Angeles and the surrounding cities. And I did in that house with them what was done with me with CLMAX House, where some would see it as militant. I would see it as character building. You screw up, you're going to be, you leave a toilet seat up, or if you don't wipe down the counter, the water on the counter, or you don't empty the ashtray, or you have a chore and you don't complete your chore, you don't make your bed, all these things, you're going to be doing a lot of writing. Yeah, that's what CLMAC did with me. So when I got to 8,000 different words, different times that added up to 8,000 words, I was like, I know what's going on here. I'm going to be good. I'm going to walk this straight line. So we did that in our house. So people would come in, they had a lot of word assignments, right? And also, one thing was that when they came into our house, there's going to be no communication with the outside world. There's going to be no Facebook, no phone, right. This is your time to focus on you, right? 85% of the guys in that house were complete success stories, but there was this one kid. This kid was at CLMAX House, my old place where I got sober, and he had snuck in heroin. Parents were texting me one night saying, like, he snuck in drugs, he got kicked out, he stole money from his dad, he's in San Clemente, he's high, he's drunk. I said, bring him up to our house. They brought him up to the house, literally dropped him off on the front doorstep, and he was sprawled out. So we got home from the meeting, we went and picked him up, and you could smell the liquor on his breath, and his eyes were rolling in the back of his head, and I had met the kid before, and he kind of liked me, but right now he was trash drunk, right? So when he came to, he's like, where am I right now? I said, you're in sober living. I don't want to be in sober living. I go, dude, it's the last house on the block, man. Your parents dropped you off. You went and stole money from your dad, got high and drunk, and this is where you are. What do you want to do? Fine, I'll do whatever you want. For the next 2-3 weeks, lies. Right. Just one of those guys. He was a poor liar. Like, you knew he was lying. It was so bad that I just told him, dude, when your lips move, I just know you're lying. You might well not smell it. Just don't even talk, right? So one night we had a traditional shotgun group for him where we sat him down in the living room like 11 p.m. Saturday night, Westwood. We're talking to him. Everybody in the house, I said, everyone, tell this guy what he means to you in this house. He doesn't. He's not being part of this house. He's doing his own, he's playing his own, like running his own show. It got to me. I said, listen, man, I'm going to give you one golden opportunity. Tell me, if I could give you anything on this God-given earth, anything, would you be able to tell me the truth of what you would want? And he goes, you want to know the truth? I go, are you capable? He goes, I want to get high. I want to do heroin. I said, perfect. Let's go for a drive. Went and got the guy in the car, drove him all the way from Westwood down to 5th and San Pedro in downtown LA. Mind you, it's 12 o'clock on a Saturday night. I don't know if you've been down there.
No.
Okay, so it looks like the set of the Night of the Living Dead. Everyone is zombified. It's tent city. It looks like a third world country. Tents lined up all and down the streets, right?
Right.
And people just, if you see them on the street, it looks like from the set of the Thriller video, right? But these are real people, right? Or at this point, they're real mutants because they're not, they have no lives. Right. And he goes, are you taking me to go get drugs? I go, no. I'm going to take you to drop you off and you can get your own drugs, boy. You wanted to get high. Your wish is my command. I asked you for your truth. This is what you want.
This is your truth.
So we get down there. I go, get out of the car. Get out of the car? Here? In this neighborhood? I'm like, yeah. You wanted it. Get out. He gets out of the car, and I turn the car around, roll the window down, and I just observed. These people were coming out of the woodwork, just swarming him to see what kind of drugs he wanted. And he's screaming from across the street, Bash, please, come and get me. He's handing out cigarettes to everyone so that they'll just leave him alone. And I got scared for him in that moment. I turned back around and went and got him and took him for a nice little drive. We drove around the neighborhood, and I said, look, man, look at the people out here and how they're living. Yeah. They have no souls. God only gives you so many chances and choices. Don't use them up. Yeah. What do you want to do? He goes, I want to tell you the truth about everything. I want to come clean on all accounts. We went back to the house. 3 days later, he came. We talked. I worked closely with him. I did everything I could to help him. The kid ended up running that house. He ended up moving down here and running a treatment center. The kid is 4+ years sober, and he's going to Fullerton College, and he's becoming an attorney. And that's one of a plethora of people that went through that house and became worker amongst workers, the true human beings that they were meant to be rather than the facade that they had gotten caught up in. And it is the joy of my life to watch these people turn it around and like do something different, become a different human being, the ones they were meant to be rather than who they were before. So, I'm almost 12 years sober. I think we have the same, around almost the same time.
Yeah, we're June babies, aren't we?
We're June babies. Yeah. The joy of my life is being of service and watching people become the best version of themselves and taking no credit. Because I just do for them what was done for me. There happen to be some good people that were around at a certain time in my life, in my 30s, mid-30s, 35, 36, that said the right things at the right time to where my ears were open up just enough to hear it and let it in and take direction and follow. I believe all humanity needs to have guidance. We got to have somebody that guides us on the straight path, right? And just being, steadfast, like doing the right things and manifesting the attributes of the higher source within us. That is the best living is, people that are grateful for everything they have and everything they don't have. Right now the house on the hill and the Ferrari isn't as appealing to me as what's going on within myself.
Exactly.
I'm comfortable in my own skin. And I don't seek a drink or a drug anymore. It's very sad and unfortunate that right now what I'm up against is not just the addiction of people, but the type of addiction. This fentanyl craze that's out there, it's like you're dealing with a monster that is 10 times the size of the monster that we used to deal with. Because these kids are on a death wish. They're on a death mission. You don't know, man. They're playing Russian roulette and they're going to die.
And I think it's just the shifting of the ages.
Yeah.
We had our demons and now kids, those demons are not theirs anymore. They've developed their own, which we don't understand sometimes.
It's a whole different demon. Yeah. And it's funny that you say that because today we did our podcast with Austin and I, and we labeled it, don't let your demons run you. You know what? I've just looked in the eyes of 3 different people this week that were in active addiction, and you could see the demons running them. And I remember that same look was when I was high, and especially meth. People turn into Skeletor. Like I had my best friend, I looked into his eyes and I saw that this man is possessed, and then I became possessed afterwards and joined him.
Wow. By the way, a big hi to Austin, our mutual friend.
Hi,
Hello, Austin. Austin's cool. You answered all my questions. Everything that I was going to ask you just managed to pop it up in the conversation.
Oh,
so I really don't have a whole lot of follow-up questions right now. But we're at that point where I usually ask my guest, what words of wisdom do you have for the folks listening?
Words of wisdom are find your values in life. You tell me what your values are, and I know what kind of a person you are. Find your purpose. If you don't know what your purpose is, make it your lifelong goal to find your purpose. And when you actually get that as your purpose, live it out and make sure that it is of being, in some way that it's of being usefulness to others, whether it be the less fortunate in your eyes or people that you can assist. Know this much. You'll find your purpose that when you have the intention of doing good and helping other people, even if they may seem like they're the less fortunate, you're actually not helping them as much as they're helping you.
Yeah.
That's where you'll find your purpose.
Yeah. I hear all the time when people talk about, and no offense to anybody who has pets, I don't have pets.
Yeah.
But people who have pets and they're like, I didn't rescue them, they rescued me. I'm like, find a person. There are so many people out there that need help finding that will rescue you. If you, I don't know, I guess because I'm not a pet person.
You're right.
I collect people.
Yeah.
I collect friends.
That's right.
And every time I meet somebody new, there's always, especially with the show, I'm very blessed to have this podcast for 7 years now and almost 250 episodes.
Right.
That I get to talk to people, and every story I listen, I'm like, I'm so glad you told me that. I can walk away with some new knowledge.
Right.
It's pretty awesome. If in the book of Pej's life, what would be the first sentence?
It's funny because I'm writing a book and I don't want to give it away, but the first sentence would be, I remember that October morning when I was driving up the street and the music was blaring and we were all just having fun in the car.
Cool. If you could name this episode, what would you name?
find your purpose and recognize your values. Because that will define who you are right now.
After everything you've talked about, all the situations that you've put yourself in, have you forgiven yourself?
Yes, I have. As a matter of fact, I have had the opportunity in a godly way to be in front of everybody who I wronged and made my amends to make it right where it was necessary. I wanted to make amends to the mother of the young man who I hit behind the wheel, but God in his divine world showed me other ways of making right for that. And it turns out that the person that became her caretaker was once my drug dealer and came to an AA meeting and heard me tell my story and approached me and said, I want to talk to her. And he said, it's not a good idea, but just the fact that you're doing so well, I admire that because I used to sell you drugs and now to see that you overcame that.
No way.
I have 11 months sober. And I don't really talk about that much, but you know.
Wow. It's just so incredible that, cause you're right, we have very similar stories. There's a lot of, things that match up. People have asked me, have I ever forgiven myself for the things that I've done?
Mm-hmm.
And after a lot of therapy and a lot of church going and talking to God on my own, I had to come to the point where I was like, there's things that you just can't change.
Mm-hmm.
And to carry that baggage around is only hurting the people around you.
Right.
Cause they can see your pain.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still an addiction going on. Mm-hmm. So I'll be 12 this June. So we're right there together.
Neck and neck.
Yeah.
I love what you just said. So here's the thing. I believe in God. I believe God is the absolute. There's only one God. And I believe that God created us and wants us to manifest his attributes. That's what I believe. This is my deep belief, right? And I don't believe that God wants us to suffer, but I do believe that God wants us to experience pain, to overcome pain, to find out our real purpose. Now, I know that there's a lot of people that live in depression and anxiety, and I don't live that way anymore. I don't believe that we're supposed to live a life of shame and guilt. And some of us are raised in that type of environment. Being a Persian guy, that's all we hear in the house. It's all your fault. It's all your dad's fault. It's always a lot of blame and shame, right?
Right.
So I believe that that's not what life was intended for. I believe that I can avoid depression and anxiety by being at one with God and asking God to show me how I can be of usefulness and do God's work. I'm a servant. You know, and I don't say, I'm not coming from a religious standpoint. I've experienced many different religions and I've done a lot of research. I just like my relationship with God.
Right. Yeah, because my addiction got me to a point, and when I sobered up, when I got clean and sober and in recovery, God and I had a big talk, and I was like, I can't carry this around me anymore. Plus, I've had so many health issues that I'm like, dude, I have enough depression and anxiety from my health that I don't have room for my recovery.
Right. We both got cancer too in the last 2 years. And that was a time when I was starting to experience anxiety again.
Yeah.
Fear of the unknown.
Yeah. So now just because of my health, I'm still working my way out of that one.
Right.
The PTSD from everything I've been through is there. But doing this helps me not to sit in it.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
So I like interviewing people so that I'm not in my own head.
Right.
And that helps me. Because I'll be on my own head for the rest of the afternoon. So it's either tacos, chocolate, or sit here and watch sad movies. I want to watch a sad movie today, though.
Yeah.
But I'm so, I guess only one addict to another addict can understand it. I'm so glad that you went through what you went through to be the man that you are today.
It had to happen.
I believe that I tell people life is not meant to be fun and games all the time.
Right.
We have to cry and hurt sometimes
mm-hmm.
so that we have that balance. And as you get older, you realize life will balance itself out.
It always does.
It always does. And when people tell me, I'm so worried, I'm like, why are you worried? Like, it's going to work out. The end result is not totally in your hands, so give it up. But then I say that, and then the next day I'm all like, oh, I was so worried about this.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm a little bit of a hypocrite. But I'm really proud of knowing you, and I'm really. There are a couple of times there I was like, oh man, like this story is so sad, but nobody said addiction was pretty and happy. So we think we're in a happy place, but we're really not.
That's right.
But thank you for coming to share this story with me and my audience. Any last words, any last comments that you want to throw out there?
No matter what, never give up. There's always hope. If your heart's still beating and your lungs are still breathing, you have a purpose. Find it.
So my boyfriend Christian has a magnet that says, in the end, everything will be okay. If it's not okay, it's not the end.
That's right. I love that. I've seen that before. I love it.
And I always like, you know what, if I just, I can panic a little bit, I can get anxious a little bit, but if I have total faith that God will get me through the situation, everything's going to be okay.
That's right.
Regardless of the outcome, things are going to be okay.
Always.
Anyway, for everybody listening, Pesh has been my guest today, and
thank you so much for having me. You know how much I love you.
I love this guy. We can go on. We can kiss each other's butts forever. So we're going to stop that. For everybody listening, if they have any questions, if they have any information on recovery or addiction, where can they find you?
So my number is 949-751-7761. I'm an interventionist, and I also do outreach for treatment centers. I also help people get into sober settings, whether it be sober living, indigent type of facilities, lower end, higher end, whatever, depending on what walks of life they come from. I help people get into treatment to get the help that they need, or just to meetings. You know what I mean? Like, I help families, I help people. It's my specialty. So I'm an interventionist. People can call me. You can find me on Facebook under the name P-E-J is the first name, and M-A-N. It's Pejman, which is my full name, but I didn't want to put the whole last name on there. So you can look me up on Facebook. I'm part of it. I work with Hightower Associates as an interventionist, and I also work with Beginnings Treatment as doing their outreach and business development. So you can find me.
And you're on cable. And you're on the internet too.
I'm on the internet.
You do the
Sober Grind.
Sober Grind.
That's our podcast.
Which I've been a guest on.
He's been a guest, and we're gonna have you come back again because
I'd love to.
We've never had so many hits when you come on.
Really?
Oh, you're a gem.
Thank you. Yeah. And I didn't have to take my clothes off on that one. Yeah, buddy. So for everybody listening again, all the information, remember, all the info will be on the Facebook page. So go check us out at Put Together Podcast on Facebook. You can also find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We can find more information on my guest and what's going on.
Put it together.
Lots of stuff, lots of really exciting stuff happening. We've got the Better You workshop on YouTube. Go check that out. We've got a new Put It Together podcast conversations with life coach Tommy. We just launched the first one. So you can find that on my YouTube page as well. Lots of things coming out of Little Mexican Productions. So go check it out. If you have any questions, just reach out and I will give you the info. If you want to be on the show, reach out and I will tell you and we can coordinate. For now, I want to thank Pesh for being on the show. You. I want to thank my producer, Mr. Kevin Morris, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Buddy, y'all, check us out. For now, this is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
Put it together.
This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.